Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. AMSOIL and I are working together because we believe that you have unlimited potential, and this podcast exists to help you find that potential and set it loose on the motorsports industry. And we believe that with the right mindset coupled with focused and consistent action, we can make motorsports an unstoppable force. That's the whole reason why I created this show, and at this point, we're almost at 100 episodes total. So this is truly something that we believe in. By empowering riders and racers with the knowledge they need and crave to grow their program, we can exponentially, that's right, exponentially improve and grow the motorsports industry. And that means snowmobilers, ATV racers, supercross racers, desert racers, UTV, doesn't matter. Like, it's all part of this show. Now, I do want to take a minute, though, and tell you a little bit more about AMSOIL specifically. And I want to start by talking about the vehicle that you drive every day. You know, how often do you actually think about the oil that's going into that? And odds are that it's pretty little, maybe never, unless it's time for an oil change. But here's why you should be thinking about it. Your oil is the only thing preventing your engine from wearing out and breaking down. And to keep your vehicle running strong, you need to think about the oil that you put in there. It needs to have extra added bonus wear protection. Now, one way to look at that is AMSOIL. AMSOIL produces a signature series synthetic motor oil that delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than is required really by any industry standard. It provides the next level protection for today's demanding engines, and that's what we need to keep them running for a long, long time. And additionally, especially if you have a truck, it allows you to keep effortlessly hauling your toys. What I want you to do next is go to amsoil.com/rider to find out more. Make the switch to AMSOIL synthetic motor oil today to keep your vehicle running great tomorrow. You know, I just want to give another quick shout out to AMSOIL. Really appreciate them being a part of this show and helping it grow and bring more value every single week to you. Now, our featured guest today is moto and marketing mage. Mage, if you don't know this is the female version of a wizard, Taylor Heiman. And Taylor is going to deliver a ton of value a little bit, but before we get there, I have a few other things I want to cover with you. One, I really want to get your feedback, and I really want to continue to bring amazing guests in the show. So one way to help me do that is to head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And then regardless of whatever podcast player you use, whether it's iTunes or Google Play or Google Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, subscribe. It's one of the best ways to ensure that you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Next up, we have Blake Wilkie coming on the show, and this guy is just phenomenal. If you haven't heard of him, go Google Urban Assault right now, and it's just crazy. So you definitely want to check him out. And then if you missed our last show, we had RJ Anderson on, and I have never received so much positive feedback for a show before. So definitely go back in time and check out that show. Now, this episode is brought to you by 5 awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing and Suspension, they're a family race team. They're custom suspension experts, and they're also UTV axle experts. Armor Coat, they simplify your cleaning process. And then Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP Powersports, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, GSP XTV Axles, and One Stop Performance. Now, this show is set up like a race. We will begin with the qualifier, which is the basic introduction. In Heat 1, we'll dive into Taylor's background. In Heat 2, we'll discuss sponsorship tactics and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line. And that's where we're going to get closing comments, and we're going to find out how to contact Taylor. Without further ado, let's hop in.
Hey guys, I'm Taylor Heiman. I've been racing for a year and a half now, and I've been riding dirt bikes for 6 years. I started at the late age of 17, and, after figuring out what I wanted in life, I kind of took off with it last year when I started racing. I was able to use Instagram, my marketing and communication skills, to grow my following, and now I'm focusing my career on working in the motorsports industry.
That's perfect, and I want people to recognize this too, is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, we talk about it on the show all the time, but it is a pathway to eyeballs, it's a pathway to followers, it's a pathway to marketing and exposure. There's a reason why the industry is paying attention to it. It's huge.
Definitely. They're replacing billboards.
Yeah, they're replacing billboards, and honestly, with Instagram TV and like Facebook Watch and some of these new platforms coming out, they're replacing TV. Like, yeah, it's interesting.
It's totally interesting because it's free. It's free to use, but as it comes free, it's also careless. So people, can be careless with it, or you can use it to your advantage. The power's all in your hands.
Have you practiced that quote before? Come on, did you just come up with that?
No. I mean, yes, I just came up with it, but I got more for you. Don't worry.
That was good. I feel like that was like on a poster somewhere. I like that.
That's kind of my mantra for everything in life. You have control in whatever you do, whatever you decide to do. If you think it and you feel it, then it's there for you, and the power is in your hands.
I have a feeling we're going to get along pretty well in this podcast. I make quotes. They're not always good quotes, but I make quotes a lot. And I like to talk about like mushy-gushy, mindset stuff too. So we're gonna do just fine.
It's all about the mindset.
I'm a little nervous for the listeners right now, because we could get off on a crazy tangent here, but we'll try to keep on track.
If they keep listening, they'll learn a lot, and it will help them. So
right. And another thing too, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-interview, but you're obviously invested in the marketing and communications. You're studying that. So yes. Those things can help you very much in this industry. I have interviewed Megan Meyer. She's an NHRA drag racer, and she's been on the show twice now. And she has a similar path. I can't remember. I think it might even be the same majors that she's looked at, but it comes through. Her knowledge of marketing and communicating. I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of skills and that you develop and you can adapt over time. So, I think that's a benefit to you coming on the show. Not only are you living some of these things in the dirt bike world, but you're also living it in the educational world.
Yep, on and off the track.
Yeah, certainly.
I try to apply it everywhere, and I kind of came into my my major. It was my niche, marketing. Yeah. So now I'm just learning all the fundamentals of it, and excited to be done this December.
Oh, hey, congratulations! So, for folks listening, we're recording this on July 17th of 2018. So, about 6 months here, and you're going to be wrapped up. Good.
Yep.
Well, I want to know a little bit more about your background. I mean, you gave us some insights on when you started riding and, what you're doing today. But let's go into some of the details. How did you get started? What's kind of the path, the journey that you took to get here?
Oh, yeah. So it's actually a really funny story of how I got into even riding dirt bikes. My younger sister, she's 2 years younger than me. She started riding before me, and I had no interest in it. I wasn't into any sports really growing up. I was always just outdoorsy. We always went camping and stuff, but no interest in it until I was about 17, and then I met a guy who knew my sister, and he rode dirt bikes. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll try it. And the first time I got on my sister's TTR, I started jumping it, and I actually crashed and got a huge gash in the front of my ankle. So after that, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I got to keep going.
That was your response, this is awesome. I got to keep going.
Yeah.
That's good.
It totally hooked me. I fell in love. And then the first time I ever got on the track, it was out at Sandy Valley, our local track, and just putting around on the beginner track, and everybody got off the main track. So I was like, okay, I'll go ride the main track, and just started hitting jumps and just started flying. And I guess that's where I fell in love with it, was because I love to jump. Even now I'm like, oh, I'm going to hit that. Like, I have to hit that before anybody else does. So it fired me up to fall down, and I wanted to get back up right away.
Do you know, or do you follow Brett Q?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
awesome.
So he was on this show. I can't remember the episode number now, but he was on the show fairly recently, and you have some similar thought processes around jumping things. He's like that. He's like, yeah, I started.
Oh yeah, he's wild.
Yeah, he's like, I just want to jump stuff. I don't. What else? Why would I need to do anything else? I just want to jump things. So. Yeah,
it's the craziest thing too, because I am so beyond terrified of heights. If you put me on a cliff and I look down, I'm like, get me away from the edge. But when I'm on my bike and I'm hitting that triple, I'm like, I have no fear, and I just feel good. I love it.
Well, that's good. Well, let's just say when I first rode a dirt bike, I don't know how old I was, 4, I don't know, 5. No, I was older than that. Either way, young. And I wrecked into my buddy's dad's truck, and my foot got jammed up in the between the tire and the shock, and it was nasty. I got a 4-wheeler after that, and I was happy. So either way, I didn't have the same reaction, which is also why I'm not a successful motocross or dirt bike or supercross person right now. I am actually, I don't even like jumping things. I like going fast, but yeah, the whole jumping thing, I kind of stay away from that. But okay, so that's good stuff. So what happened next? So you got into jumping. You're having fun on a bike. Yeah. What happened after that?
So it took a 3-year relationship for me to realize what I really wanted in life. So after being held back from this relationship, I was like, I'm done listening to people telling me that I can't, or telling me that I shouldn't, or that it's an unrealistic goal. Or, depending on other people to put time into me. And I was like, no, I need to put this on myself. And it's funny, because I actually got I got laid off from my job at this point, because I went to school, so I didn't have enough hours at work. So they laid me off. I lost my boyfriend of 3 years, and, I was just tired of everybody telling me that I can't. So I started going out to the desert or being, like 3 days a week, and just putting in a few hours out there. And I'd come back, wash my bike, and do it all again the next day. And I just started taking my training really, really seriously, and really started getting my mind prepared for everything that I was about to do. I started getting into works racing, and that sparked a fire in me, because I just, I had not to prove it to anybody else, but to prove it to myself that I could do it. And, I wasn't winning races in the beginning. I still had to work really hard, and it took me all summer to get up to speed, and I literally raced any race that I could. I raced night series. I raced just straight desert. I raced GPs. Like, anything that I could, I was there racing it. So I got into the Big Six racing, and actually started doing pretty good in that series. And then I started doing good in works as well. So I started winning races, and that started adding up to a championship. And I ended up winning 2 championships last year in 2 different series, works and then AMA Big Six. And, I put my mind to the goals that I wanted. I overlooked all the obstacles, and started just, letting go of all the baggage, all the negativity, and really focusing on myself.
Have you ever heard of the crab? What's it called? I'm just gonna call it methodology. The crab philosophy. Have you heard of this before?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so what? Oh, you didn't know where I was going with that, did you? Crab. If you took a bunch of crabs and you put them in like a big giant open container, they can climb out. Like crabs can do some pretty amazing stuff physically, right? They can climb out, but they don't. Do you know why they can't actually get out of those types of containers?
Why?
As soon as one of them gets close enough to the edge or like gets above the rest where they can start climbing out, the other ones pull them back down. They say, no, you're not rising above the rest. You're down here with us. Right. And, that happens with us humans too. We don't mean to, right? It's not like some of our friends or family or, I don't know, just people that we are in contact with. It's not like they want bad things for us. They actually want good things. It's just the opposite. They don't want us to make a big mistake and, ruin our lives, right? But sometimes we just want, like, we have enough confidence in ourselves. We just want to climb out of that tub, and we don't need anybody pushing us up or pulling us back.
No, totally. My dad was really concerned because I never had raced really anything before, just the local races at Sandy Valley. So when I wanted to commit to a series, obviously that comes with money. You need money to commit to a series, but mostly you're committing to racing and putting yourself out there to get hurt. And my dad was really concerned about that. Yeah. So it was tough for me to get into racing a series. So I literally, sorry, Dad, I had to disregard you and I had to go and do it myself because I knew that I could. And now he's at every single one of my races. He's always rooted me on, but he loves it now. Like at first he was nervous. He was scared. He just didn't want his girls to get hurt because it's just me and my sister. He doesn't have any boys. So, I definitely understand what you're talking. It was out of love.
Yeah, exactly.
He just didn't want his little girls to get hurt.
Right.
But I knew that I had to do this, and it was the best decision that I'd ever made a year and a half ago.
Perfect. And so now you've got a couple championships under your belt, But,
yep.
But today, what are the things that you're fired up about right now?
As far as what I'm racing or just...
Yeah, just in general, yeah.
So I am discovering my love for motocross, getting away from the GPs a little bit because that's just a whole weekend ordeal to go to a GP. And like I said, everything takes money.
Yeah.
So instead of spending 3 days at a GP, I can go race my moto, do my 2 motos in a day, and then head back home. But discovering my love for moto, I'm racing the Trans World Series right now. Absolutely fell in love with it 2 weeks ago when I raced at Milestone. I ended up taking first, which we need more girls out there. We do. We need more girls in the women's class, but also raced the guys class. I just missed my second moto due to overlap, but also racing against the guys. But one thing that I'm fired up about right now is I'm really just trying to, get away from labels. Like I understand I'm a moto girl and that's how I built my following, but I'm so much more than that. And we are so much more than just the label we're assigned to. I love travel. I love beauty. I'm the definition of makeup to mud because I need my nails done every 2 weeks, but I will go play in the dirt as well. So one thing is labels and getting women the recognition that they deserve in the sports, which is a struggle because, guys can take it as, well, there's not enough girls, or you're never going to, man or level up to what a man can do, which is fine, totally men, women, different bodies. But in the women's class, why is there not recognition in that women's class? You never see anything about it. So fired up about those things.
No, it's really good. There's 2 things I thought of too when you were saying that. Actually 3. So the first thing was what we were talking about in the pre-interview. With this podcast, if you look back on previous guests, there's a number of strong female athletes that have come on the show,
Yeah.
and they're dominating right now, especially when you look at the UTV world.
Oh yeah, Kristen Matlock, she's amazing.
Kristen Matlock, or like a Sarah Price. There is a point now with some of these other racing programs where it's not about any physical. So like motocross, right? There's a physical aspect to that. ATV, there's physical aspect, and obviously you have to be in really good shape to do some of these other racing. But like, you don't necessarily have to have the same physical strength to compete at really high levels. So I'm excited for that. But so that's one thing I thought of, is just like, I want people to know, from a sponsorship perspective and just from in general motorsports, that women are here, and we want them here. We want more of them here, and that's one of the ways we're going to grow, is by making it more and more acceptable for anybody to come into the sport. Anybody. So once we get women in here, now we got to start looking at other demographics, right? We got to make sure that everybody feels comfortable coming in here and doing this thing.
Well, not only that, and I totally understand the whole biological aspect of things, totally understand that. But I actually think it's progressing, because women, they're more marketable than men, especially when you're doing a sport like this. So I think sponsors are starting to realize that, and, it is about what you finish and how you finish, but also how you represent on and off the track, which is what a lot of riders neglect. I'll post my race result, or somebody will post their race results and then post a picture of them partying or being, illiterate, and that's just you're still representing your sponsor.
Right. So there's a couple other things I want to add on that. Another one is Amy Hood. So what you just described is similar to what Amy Hood had described to me. She was on episode 7, so way back. And that's kind of her methodology, is like, look, I can go and dress up and do the makeup and be as girly as I want, and then I can come out and I can rip a monster truck, or I can rip a dirt bike, or whatever you put me in, and that's okay. You don't have to label me one way or the other. That's okay.
Exactly. I love her. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. I talk about her a lot in this show. I actually should try to see if she can come back on again. It's been almost, by the time this episode releases, almost 90 episodes since she's been on. Wow, I can't count.
That's incredible.
The last thing I thought of, there's this song, Kid Rock. It says, "You'll never put a finger on me." And like his song is all about, like, I'm country, I'm rock, I'm rap, I'm whatever. You're not gonna tell me what my genre is, because once you do, I'm gonna change it. So I think that's
be whoever you want to be, and if you're not changing, then you're not growing.
Right.
So I'd rather be changing and growing than being in a stagnant position and never growing, never progressing.
Well, that's good. Well, I have one last question that's in this kind of Heat 1, the background establishment round, and that's around who are some of your current partners and your current sponsors?
I have a lot of amazing sponsors, so no particular order, but Budget Blinds of Las Vegas, they help me out a ton. Nitro Moose, have a very good relationship with them. Asterisk USA, Moto Seat, TBT Racing, We Big Inc., Salty Honey, Shift MX, of course, Flow Vision Goggles, Bell Helmets, Pinned Motorsports, they are amazing, 710 MX Graphics, and I think I about covered it.
Well, you piqued my interest on a couple of those. I like to dive into the sponsors that are non-endemic, which is outside of the industry. And I think if I captured them right, there was at least 3. You said Budget Blinds.
Yes.
Then you said Nitro.
Budget Blinds Las Vegas.
Yeah. And then Nitro Moose. Now, I'm assuming that's a hair product, but I don't know. Mousse?
No, Nitro Mousse is actually in the industry. They're bib mousse.
Oh,
and they
like
are
mousse,
pretty.
Moose. Ha ha ha.
Oh yes,
Okay.
because I do a lot of different terrains, and
Yeah.
getting a flat tire is the last thing that I would ever need.
Yeah.
Completely ruin your race. So definitely trust Nitro Mousse with my life. They're a pretty new company, but they are taking over the market for mousses.
Awesome.
They're now number 1 above Michelin Mousse.
Nice.
So yes, Nitro Mousse is a very, very supportive sponsor of my passions.
Nice. I don't know why my head went to like hair mousse, but whatever. Do people even use that product? I don't even know if mousse is a thing anymore. But the last thing that now I'm questioning this one too, salty honey.
Mhm.
Is that a food?
So Salty Honey. No, Salty Honey is a workout clothing brand, actually ran by Diana Dahlgren.
Okay.
And her best friend Taylor Flamenco. So, as you know, Diana Dahlgren was Miss Supercross. Well, they decided to make their own clothing line a few years ago. So, I'm actually an ambassador for Salty Honey, and I love everything that they stand for because it's about being real, unedited. You don't need to be a model. They accept all shapes, sizes, and they just want you to love who you are.
Perfect. Well, at least one of them was very clearly is very clearly non-endemic, right? Budget blinds, unless
yes,
that's actual blinds, right? We're talking. There's not some like secret sauce there. Okay, good.
Budget blinds helps me out so much when it comes to racing. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. Great people, and just amazing.
My plug to people listening is if you can capture, at least one non-endemic sponsor, that's one of the main ways we're going to grow this industry. I mean, if we can get money flowing in from outside of the motorsports world, we can help grow this industry and get way more exposure. So there's a lot of marketing potential that we hold. We just need to make sure we sell it to the right people. So I definitely encourage that.
And you'll never get it unless you ask. Trust me. I've had to pursue, and almost give up, but keep pursuing until I finally obtained my goal.
Right. No, that's good. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We are going to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and then we'll hop into Heat 2 and talk about sponsorship, tactics, and strategies.
What's up, everyone? George Hamill here. As a professional off-road racer, I'm always seeking a competitive advantage. My vehicle, tools, and products must perform flawlessly for me to excel on the racetrack. I only use products that help me succeed and provide me an edge over my competition. One critical area that affects racing is weight, and this is certainly true for UTV racing. Mud, dirt, and grease can accumulate under the vehicle and on the tires, decreasing speed and performance. So in 2017, we partnered up with Never Lift Racing and their amazing product Armor Coat. This spray-on product performs. Not only does it reduce the effect of mud while racing, but it also makes cleanup quicker and gives my vehicle a professional appearance on race day. Armor Coat spray is a critical part of our race program. Grab some today. You'll be amazed.
Whether you are a professional racer like George or a weekend warrior like myself, Armor Coat can make a huge difference in your life. Armor Coat from Never Lift Racing is a unique solution formulated to help prevent mud, clay, and ice from sticking to the surfaces that you treat. This cuts your cleanup time in half while keeping your machine looking new. So I want you to go check out ArmorCoatProducts.com for the latest off-road care products. Have you ever been out on the trail or at the track or in the middle of the desert and something breaks? Well, of course you have. We've all been there. But a lot of people at that point, they reach into their trusty toolbox for the duct tape or the zip ties or wrenches to fix their machine. However, there's a feeling that you get when you realize you need more than just duct tape to fix that rock chip in your radiator. That's a horrible, horrible feeling to have. And that's why I'm I'm going to tell you next about SolderWeld's metal bonding products, specifically AMSOIL. So this product gives you a longer term fix than JB Weld, which is just going to get you back to the trailer or back to the pits. With basically the assistance of MAP gas or propane torch, you can quickly and easily repair an oil cooler, radiator, AC line, or any crack or hole in aluminum. And better yet, AMSOIL flux is the only flux in the industry that cleans and decontaminates the dirty and greasy surface for you. So you don't even have to worry about that part. The AMSOIL rods are actually capable of a 30,000 PSI fix, and they're stronger than even the parent metal, and they're built to last the lifetime of the part. So don't let a simple radiator leak leave you out of the race or broken down in the trail. Bring along some AMSOIL aluminum alloy repair rod and flux from SolderWeld. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors. And on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. I mean, it's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's like unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next, is how topthepodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to topthepodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to topthepodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly. So check it out. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance. And that's why I'm going to talk to you next about bold racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important, if you're ready for that next level of performance, to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now in Heat 2. That's where we talk about sponsorship tactics and strategies. This is really the meat of the podcast. What I want to start with, Taylor, is if you could help me understand a couple of relationship building scenarios you've had with a couple of your sponsors. So if you could just kind of walk through, I don't know, it could be how you met, it could be how you built a relationship, whatever. Maybe walk us through a couple of those.
So one of my first real sponsors actually giving me product was Addict USA. So that's knee braces. And I, at this point I had 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I reached out to them. I saw they were coming to Supercross, and I was like, hey, I'd love to meet you guys. I live in Vegas. Can we set something up? So they said, yeah, of course, we'd love to meet you. Met them at Supercross and just built my relationship from there, but didn't end there. I actually went down to California. I went to their facility in Corona and decided to do a tour of the facility, and they just loved that. They loved that I wanted to come check out what they were doing, because everything's made in-house in the USA. So they loved that I showed interest in how the process was, and I found that pretty important, because when you're explaining, oh, you should buy this product, this is great, but why,
Yeah, yep.
And I wanted to learn the reasons why this product was so great, test it for myself, know the people who I'm representing. So I would go down to Addict, and I've been there a few times, and I would bring my friends with me because they just loved people knowing that everything was built in-house, and just built a really good relationship with them there. And once I started gaining more followers and doing more giveaways with other companies, then they decided they wanted to do a giveaway with me, which was pretty big. It was the biggest giveaway that I ever did. Giving away $600 pair of knee braces to somebody on Instagram it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's massive. Yep.
So was really happy about that, and I sustained the relationship with them by, at the end of recently going into the summer break, I decided to text all my sponsors and let them know, hey, this is where I'm standing in the points. This is my goals for when the series comes back up. This is what I'm going to be doing over summer, even if they don't ask for it, because really they're not going to ask you for that. They're busy. But once they, take this 30 seconds to read your message, they're going to be like, hey, that's really cool. She was thinking of me. She decided that she wanted to reach out to me, let me know how she's doing. So I'm not just giving product away, I'm building a relationship, which is what I really want my sponsors to feel. They have a relationship with me. If they have ideas, that they can come to me and, we'll get something going.
No, I think that's very good. Very good. And I really liked two things that you said that I just wanted to highlight. One of them is how you're saying going to the factory or wherever it is. I think that's huge, and especially if you have the opportunity to capture it on social media, right? If you can.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, especially with Insta stories or Facebook Live or Instagram TV, any of those things. If you can capture that experience, that's massive. I mean, I've been working in manufacturing environments for the past 10 years, and now I'm in an R&D environment, and those plants, the manufacturing plants, can be massive marketing tools, but it's hard to get people inside those plants sometimes. If you have someone that's I'll come in and guess what? I'll share this certain area with everybody. That can be huge.
Right.
That can be huge.
No, absolutely. If you have the opportunity to go check out a facility, then you totally should. Most of them are in California anyway. That's the heart of it. So.
And the second
if you have the opportunity.
Definitely. The second thing that you said that I think is a very tangible action for someone to take is doing giveaways. It's a great way to get people engaged in the process and then also give them access to a product. So one, it provides some social media exposure, which is great, but two, it gives somebody more access to the product. Right. And I think that's great.
You just have to have good content, a good relationship with your followers, which is why buying your followers will not work. A lot of people do this, buying your followers, it's not going to do anything for you because you're going to have 170,000 followers and you're only going to have 300 likes and 0 comments. So this is why you need to have an organic following, because what's the point? It's just a number to have followers, but you need like meaningful relationships with your followers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've talked about it on the show quite a bit, but I still think there's misconceptions because the number of followers that you have is an indicator, right? It shows, potentially shows how big your reach can be. But I can guarantee it, anybody who's making a decision around sponsorship is going to look into the quality of the engagement and the followers that you have. So it is very easy to go into a profile and find out that there's a bunch of fake followers. You're like, oh, this person has 50,000 people. Great. You look at one of their posts. First off, you can tell the post looks horrible. And then second off, you look at it, you're like, okay, they've got 100 likes. And they're all from like Insta 3918726. And then
exactly.
Follower Nation 129186. You're like, okay, all these are fake. These are all fake profiles. Or people who literally don't care. And it actually looks worse, I think, when it happens. Because
you're not credible at that point. You need to have credibility behind you.
Definitely. Do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all?
Do you know
who
I
Gary
do not.
Vaynerchuk is? Ooh, you're gonna like this guy, especially.
Okay, I'm writing him down.
from what I can tell from the way you think, I think you're gonna like this guy. So Gary Vayner, I think maybe you say it Vaynerchuk, Vayner Chuck. Vaynerchuk. Either way, he has written.
Is like Gary V?
Yeah, Gary V. That's him. That's him.
Oh yes, I do follow him. I love him.
So I've read a couple of his books now, and he's big on social media and influencer marketing, personal branding. But I tell you what, he starts preaching the credibility thing as like number one. He says if you're not credible, let's say you enter into a business or maybe it's a sport or you become an influencer marketer, which if people don't know that, if you're listening right now and you are racing, you're also an influencer. You're participating in influencer marketing. But he basically says that if you want to go out and start doing this just to make money, or you're doing something that is not credible, or you're not actually passionate about, or you don't actually care about, it will show through, and you might have short-term success, but you will not have long-term success. Like
exactly.
Guaranteed. And that guy knows what he's talking about. So.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a model.
Yes. So either way, what you said there around credibility does stand out quite a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it all goes with it because you can instantly gain 50,000 followers from purchasing them. But what's the point of it? Because people look to you and give you sponsorship and product because they think you're going to reach a wider audience.
Right.
And if you're just buying that audience, then what's the point? You don't have any credibility behind you after that. Mm-hmm. So I do think a lot of sponsors are becoming more aware of that. Oh
yeah, definitely. I would say a couple years ago, people maybe weren't as savvy, but now they are. Now they're looking into that. And I've had a number of people on the show that make decisions around sponsorship, and they can tell in a heartbeat. They're looking for, and actually Gary Vaynerchuk says this too. But if you have, let's say, 100 people who are absolutely committed to you, and they want you to succeed, and they follow you actively, that's better than having 100,000 people who are not, who aren't, so there's a piece to that where the businesses are out there are paying attention. They're paying attention to that stuff.
Definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, for example, this is not like some massive show. I'm not out there getting millions of followers and like millions of downloads, but there's the people that I reach, the people who actually listen to this show and take notes and do something different about it. That's the people that my sponsors want to reach. They want to, for example, SolderWeld. So SolderWeld has been sponsoring the show for a long time now, And one of their goals is, and one of the reasons why they came on is because they are looking to make a bigger impact in the industry, and they want to do it through people who they can trust. So they're looking for people who are actually invested in improving the way they do their sponsorship program. That's what they want, paying attention to their products. Same with AMSOIL. So AMSOIL's on for the same exact reason. They're like, look, we want to catch the attention of these people who are listening to your show, because if you're tuning in, you've at least made the commitment that you're open to improving. You're open to new suggestions. Which is huge. So that's the people AMSOIL want to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be talking to robots or just empty profiles. You need a good organic base where you can build relationships with.
Right.
Either a relationship with the sponsor you're promoting, or a relationship with you yourself. And I think a lot of people get a misconception about social media, and they use it carelessly because they don't view themselves as a brand. Once you start promoting yourself, you are a brand. You have become a self-brand. You, and not only are you representing your sponsors, and your sponsors are representing you, but you're just building this brand, and you're eventually going to be your own company. Like for myself, I view myself as a brand because of the sponsors that I represent, but also because of my ethics and my values, and people really take to that. So you become a trademark, which a lot of people don't know.
No, I think it's something that happens almost on accident for some people, and they're not aware of it. This is, I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk right now would just be, if he was listening to the show, he would just be high-fiving himself with excitement. But yeah, that's really what a couple of his books are about. Crush It and Crushing It is all about, creating a personal brand. And that really is the way that you should be looking at how you use social media. It is your own personal brand. And a lot of racers, as they become, as they start making a bigger impact on the industry, they form their own race programs. They form their own LLCs. They form their own race teams. And you see things like, Walker Fowler was on this. He's a GNCC ATV racer and doing really well. He was on the show in episode 54. Well, now, guess what? Walker Fowler Racing is out there. And it's like, that's his business. That's his team. So RJ Anderson was just on, and he's the same way. Like, RJ Anderson runs a business. That's what he does. I mean, he happens to race, but he runs a business.
Yes, definitely. You can totally turn it into a business. Like I said, the power's in your hands, and you could take it wherever you want it to, as far as you want it to. But one thing you need to be aware of is you're not only representing yourself, you're also representing all the people behind you.
I love to give Tom Brady references on this show too. And I know every single time I do it, half of the listeners, they're like, boop, they tune out and they unsubscribe from my podcast. But hey, the guy has some things figured out. Let's just be honest. But so Tom Brady, he's formed his own brand. And one of the things he's been known for is like, his health practices and, being able to extend the life of his body and the performance of his body. Well, surprise, surprise, he's had his own logo for years, right? But that's just one small little slice. But now he's known for certain things. He's done shows like Facebook Watch. He's had his own series around this stuff. He's built a brand so that now when he's done playing football, he's got his own business for, I can't remember, what's he called? TB12. Like, he's got his own business. He's good. He's already prepared for the future. So football no longer defines Tom Brady. It's like he defines Tom Brady. So I think when you talk about like leaving a legacy and stuff like that, that's a good way of doing it. Sponsors stay on board then when you leave, right? You're done racing, like Ricky Carmichael. He still has a motorcycle. He doesn't race professional Supercross anymore. Guess what? He's still got he's got a factory ride, right? Jeremy McGrath. He doesn't race Supercross anymore, but he's still got his factory ride. So,
but they're also still posting on Instagram, and they're still representing their sponsors. And that's the thing with me is, I'm not that fast. I am entry level. I will admit it 100%. I just started this, but what draws sponsors to give me professional level sponsorship is my marketing skills, how I represent myself, what I will say about them, how I will vouch for their company and their product. Not because of my, I finished first this weekend. It's all about off the track, how you're gonna benefit them.
Yeah, and I truly believe in thinking about the long term. And honestly, looking at this show and some of the ways that I've structured it, I've had a ton of younger guests on here too. So I've had 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds. And I'm thinking like, well, if I can give them some hints and they can give me some hints, like 20, 30 years from now, down the road, these guys, they're going to be superstars, right?
Right.
And imagine what they're going to do to the industry. And, some of the stuff, so I'm strategic in some ways, like in that way, I want to make sure that I have good relationships with these folks and, I can follow their career and learn from how they learn and, help them be successful. But the other thing that was completely accidental for me, so full transparency, I didn't know a lick of anything about motorsports marketing and sponsorship. I had some marketing classes in school, and I've been riding machines and stuff my whole life, but I didn't know anything. But I was like, hey, whatever, I'll start this podcast on it. And now I'm like, I actually think I know something about it.
Well, yeah.
And now people ask me. They're asking me for advice. They're like, oh, what do I do in this scenario? What do I do in that scenario? Like, give me some advice on what to do with this sponsor. Like, I was like, how did this even happen? It was almost it's almost an accident. I built a personal brand, where I could stop doing the show and people would probably still say, hey, can you help me put together this proposal? And that's interesting how that stuff happens.
No, it was totally on accident for me too. I never, I'm not going to be this Instagram model or, whatever it was. It wasn't about that. It was just like projecting my passions on social media and just living my life the best that I can and the way that I want to, not listening to any of the negative. And there's a ton of it out there. I just blocked all that out, and I think people really took to that.
What I'll say too, maybe this would be a good segment, honestly, because we've talked a lot already about social media, but one of the things that I think you've been able to do is grow your social media pretty quickly. When did you actually start your Instagram profile?
I mean, it started probably like 5 or 6 years ago, but I didn't start gaining followers until February of last year. And I always mark February as my go-to day because that is when the relationship ended. The job fell through. All the struggles came on top of me in February. So I would mark February of last year as my go-to. But I started in February of last year with like 900 followers. And
really?
And now I have almost 40K.
Right. So I think that's impressive. So there's a ton of people listening right now that are like, dang, how did that happen?
Organic followers.
Right. And you're not the only person who's had success with that, right?
Right.
If you look at my podcast and my Instagram followers or any of my social media, like nowhere near that, and I've been working at it. But if people are out there and they found the formula, they're true to themselves, and you can figure it out. It's hard to teach. I haven't really found a good way to teach it, or even honestly myself learn it and apply it. But it's hard, but it happens. So I want you to tell me a little bit about that. What kind of was your strategy? Obviously, you flipped a switch in February. So walk us through that a little bit.
I would say what worked best for me was being positive. There's so much negative and people trying to bring you down that I would just try to be positive in every situation that I went through. I never posted anything negative. I felt like I tried to provide quality content. So I would take quality photos and, either it's a quote or what I'm doing this weekend, but I think people overlook the potential of using hashtags, because that will definitely help grow your page, using various hashtags that a lot of people look up that reaches a wider audience. And then also engaging with your audience. So when you ask them to comment and they comment, be sure to reply in a short amount of time, because when you engage with your followers within a certain amount of time, then your content will go onto the discovery page and it will be at the top of the list because you're most active. So that helps using those strategies, but I just really try to be positive. I found my niche in the very beginning, that everybody liked my dirt bike posts, of course, because good looking girl and I ride, and I'm passionate about it. So like showing my passion, how determined I was. And at this point, I'm telling you, I was out in 110-degree heat almost every day, just getting my motos in. So I don't know how many girls will do that, but I really showed my determination for the sport and my need to improve and to go further. And then also with gaining these sponsorships, that helped a lot. But actually a strategy that I haven't shared before is I would ask big dirt bike pages to repost my stuff. So I would ask like Dirt Bike Media or Motocross Supercross, with like, who knows if they're organic, but they seemed pretty organic to me. There's over 200K on them to repost my photos. And again, being a girl, I am more marketable than a man because there's very less women in the sport than there is men. But so they would repost my stuff and I'd get followers that way.
Oh, that's good. And honestly, what you're talking about too is just supply and demand, right? There's less supply of female motocross racers, but there's a demand to view their content. Exactly. Boom. You've got that, and you can take advantage of that. Just the same as, I don't know, for whatever reason I can't think of another example, but there's this there's plenty of things out there where there's people who are different or unusual or you're not used to seeing, and that can stand out in a crowd.
Definitely. Like I sad to say, I was on my phone a lot, and I would just be constantly contacting people like, hey, can you repost this photo? Can you repost my bike? Emailing them, like just always in constant communication with who I thought could help me out. And that really helped grow my profile.
And one thing that, I don't know if it's true for you or not, but it's not, from my observation has been, it's not like one big post. So if you get, if someone who has 200,000 followers shares your content once, that might give you 10 more followers or 20 more followers or 50, whatever. But it's not like once they do, you automatically pick up 10% or 20%. You have to do it. Time. Yeah, all the time. Constantly. Yes. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And I think that I know I can do better at that. And then also what I want to just to try to highlight, one of the challenges I think I've run into with, for example, with my Instagram profile is it sounds like if you're talking to somebody that doesn't really know the motorsports industry and you say, yeah, I do a podcast on motorsports marketing and sponsorship, they're like, wow, that's incredibly niche. Like that is super niche. But then if you look at my content, well, one day there's a snowmobiler. Snowmobilers like that. One day there's a UTV racers like that. One day there's someone motocross like that. But it's never all of them at the same time. Right. So it's not niche enough when it comes to targeting and the specific audience. But what I will say, and just to kind of clarify this, I like to clarify this in shows when we talk about don't buy followers. What I want to clarify is it's okay to use ads. So you're buying ads and people might look at it and then follow you. That's not what we're talking about here. That is an okay thing because those are real people that they'll see your ad and they like it. Yeah, I just want to make sure people know that because We've talked about fake followers and buying followers on this a lot of the show. I just want to make sure people are continuously reminded that it's okay to use Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever, and if you gain followers from that, perfect. No, that's no big deal.
Exactly. No, that's totally fine. That is buying, like a billboard for the internet,
Right.
But it's attracting real people. People who click on it or find interest in it are real, genuine people who are going to interact with you, not
Definitely.
fake accounts. So.
Definitely. Well, what we're going to do now, because I think we got really good details in the sponsorship tactics and strategies, I just want to touch on the main event, go through a couple of those questions. And Taylor, what I want to understand from you is what's the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome in your motorsports career? I want to know a little bit more about how you overcame that and what you took away so people can learn from similar challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, my biggest obstacle was doing it on my own. I'm a completely independent person, but I would have to find one person to come with me to a race out of state, so I wouldn't go alone. But that was a big obstacle because at that point in my life, I had a lot of people walk out. So mentally, I was trying to be positive, and I was trying to just work towards my goals, but it was hard because I was alone a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, now the story is completely different. I have all the support in the world, but at that point it was really hard. And then another one is just when I was first growing my followers, in order to gain attention, I would post a little bit sexier photos and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm trying to get away from that. I am not trying to post as many sexy photos. I'm trying to post more, more being advocate for the younger generation. So an obstacle was just getting away from that. Like, if I were to keep posting those photos, obviously I'd have 100K by now. But it slowed down my progress a lot from not posting those photos, which is completely fine because that's not the direction that I want to go in. It was good to get me started, but now I'm just struggling trying to find that niche that's going to make me grow as much as that would. So.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and I'll go back to Amy Hood one more time. One of the things that she said in her show was, that is one of the ways that she's gained followers too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, I work so hard. She's like, I put in so much time at the gym, and I'm sculpting my body to be exactly the way I want it to be. And yeah, that does gain me followers, but it also allows me to express things that are really important to me. So there's
right.
I'm a pretty big advocate too of folks to don't judge a book by its cover or whatever it may be, because you don't know everybody's true intent. And
right, exactly.
And Amy Hood's done, I think, in my opinion, a lot of good things out there. I mean, I know that she's involved in helping a lot of kids better understand their goals, and that's big stuff. So, and sponsors get excited about that. So it's especially if folks are thinking I guess another one I'll just really quick mention to put the guy spin on it. Dylan Merriam, he races Supercross, and he was on the show in the past. Well, he is sponsored by a gym, and guess what? He's in fantastic shape. So every now and then you're gonna catch him in a picture with his shirt off, but
right.
He works hard for that. It takes a lot of work to keep that, and he is also promoting his sponsor. Same with Megan Meyer is she's a big advocate of health and well-being, and so she's gonna post photos that are gonna show that, and some of her sponsors that's their message as well. So it links up very perfectly. Now, I'll tell you this much. Larry Enticer. Do you know who Larry Enticer is? You might not follow him.
Yes.
Oh, you do? Good.
Yeah.
Larry Enticer is, he could put up, he could be sponsored by a beer company, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be sponsored by a yoga retreat.
Right.
But that's the way that he presents himself physically, and even the way he dresses, that's part of his character. and it lines up very well with some companies but not others.
Right. No, yeah, and I just the obstacle that I'm trying to overcome is just, like I said, don't label us. I'm not just that moto chick, or I'm not just that girl who's hot, but so much more behind me. I'm getting my degree. I'm starting my own business. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do so many things, and it goes the same for all the women out there. We are just not your eye candy, and we're not, just taking pictures next to a bike. We're actually ripping on these things, and you better watch out because we're coming up fast behind you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'll probably just ask one more quick question in this category, and it's one that I have a lot of fun with. If you could sponsor any athlete in the world, who would you choose and why?
Any athlete in the world, professional or?
Yeah, I guess ideally it'd be somebody. Okay, no, I won't even define it. Yeah, anybody.
If I could sponsor anybody, I would sponsor she's a friend of mine. She is about 12 years old. Her name is Desiree, and she is just the sweetest girl. She has heart, but she definitely needs some help getting there. So I would definitely sponsor her, give her all the support that she needed to reach her goals, and I just see a lot of me in her. So, like I said, I want to help out the younger generation, and I would definitely start with her.
Definitely. And one of the things the reason why I asked that question is you're trying to make a decision right now about who to sponsor, and you're a human, okay? So let's look at businesses. We always talk about there is the company or the business, but there's always some human being making those decisions as well, and they're going to think the same way you think.
Right.
Now that, they're going to want return on investment, they're going to want to understand the metrics, they're going to want to understand how it's going to benefit the business, but ultimately they're looking at things from a very similar perspective. How can I relate to this person? What's their story? How could their story relate with my audience? So I like to ask that question to put, the sponsored rider in the same situation as the person making the decision about who or who not to sponsor.
Right. And ROI is completely important, but I think having a good relationship with your riders is even more important. Because obviously in the end, it's going to have your increased ROI go up. So with sponsoring somebody like Desiree, she communicates, which is a major thing, what I would want from my sponsor. I'd want them to be communicating with me, keeping in contact with me, letting me know what's up. And she does that all the time without me even asking. So, which is why communication is so important when it comes to sponsorship. And if you have a good relationship with your riders, this goes for the sponsors, then you're going to have, more valuable marketing content out there coming from them for free in return for product or discounts. But in the end, it's going to be better for you if you have a good relationship and communication with your sponsored rider.
Definitely. Well, that's good stuff. You know what stinks though? There's some negative things that come out of these interviews every time. You know what it is?
What's that?
It's got to end. We got to close it out. At some point, we have to stop, and that's the downside of every interview. That's where we do the closeout. It's at the finish line. So we're gonna wrap things up now, but I do want you to kind of give us one last little tidbit. What's one thing that if people forgot everything else we talked about and just remembered one thing, what should that one thing be?
One thing I would recommend is don't be afraid of going slow, but be more afraid of standing still. As long as you're going slow, you're still growing, you're still changing, and you're still moving. But if you're afraid of only standing still, then you're just in one place and there's no growth, improvement. You're not growing. So
is that another one you practiced? Did you practice that one?
I have a bunch of them. They're all stored in my head someplace.
There you go. You're out quoting me today. Oh, gosh, I got to pick my quote game up here. See, here's my problem. Either I am not capable of remembering anything, or I just choose not to remember anything. I don't know yet, but I jumble up so many quotes, and like in my head, I get it, and then people listening are like, "This guy is a buffoon."
No way.
Either way. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
So definitely you can find me on Instagram at Taylor_362. That's kind of like the only thing I really use for my public. Facebook is more private for friends, and same with Snapchat. I don't really have Twitter, so definitely find me on Instagram. Send me a message. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm happy to always answer them.
Certainly. Well, really appreciate you diving into a lot of the mindset stuff. That's tugging on my heartstrings. I love that stuff. And we still got into the business side, understanding a little bit more about social media, different tactics of, doing giveaways and heading over to your sponsor's manufacturing site or whatever it may be. And I love that I messed up all your non-academic sponsors, but I got one right, so 1 out of 3. But yeah, that's it though. We got to close things out, so I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. I really think it would be a good thing for you to do now. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future shows. Blake Wilkie in particular, because Blake is our absolute next guest, and he is just an awesome guest. I mean, I don't know how else to describe him. You need to listen to this next episode. So subscribe now. That way you don't have to remember next week. Also, head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review, because that does wonders for our show. It gives us so much more exposure, and that allows us to continue to produce a show and continue to bring on amazing guests. And make sure you're following us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Now, Facebook, though, that's where we do our live shows. Twice a month we bring guests on. We just had Lauren Morell of Mad Dog Media Marketing on. That would have been July 30th is when we went live on Facebook. Now, that show is also going to be released as an audio-only podcast that's available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or wherever you normally listen to your podcast. So for whatever reason you can't get over to the live show, and that's where you can actually ask questions and interact. But if you can't get there, you can subscribe, and then you'll be able to get access to the audio-only version when it releases. To get insider access to upcoming guests and also have access to a forum for sharing best practices, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. Now, special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Armor Coat, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out our other partners, including GSP, XTV Axles, MBRP, HMK, USA, Sudboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.